Okay. All right, so I got my YouTube stream going again. Sorry, I lost my sound on YouTube for some reason. So anyways, talking about ejaculation control, basically what I just said was this ejaculation is a function of the parasympathetic nervous system, or it's a function of the sympathetic nervous system. So when you're constantly stuck in sympathetic mode, when you're nervous, stressed out, not sleeping enough, uh, you're in a fight or flight mode. Basically, you're not going to last very long during sex because you're already on edge in that sympathetic nervous system state, right? So one of the keys to ejaculation control is to keep yourself in the parasympathetic state. And the easiest way to do that is through deep breathing, deep mindful belly breathing during sex. So that gives you something to focus on, helps you to keep your energy within your body. It helps you to stay balanced and calm when you're having sex, basically. So that's number one key to arousal control is proper breathing, breathing from the belly and breathing deep. Another aspect of arousal control, ejaculation control, is being able to keep the sexual energy moving through your body. So what happens when a man is aroused is all this energy is building up in the genitals. And it needs somewhere to go because it can't stay in the genitals. So it's going to find a pathway out. And for most men, that pathway is out the penis and you ejaculate. Well, when you create a new pathway internally, like the microcosmic orbit, for example, which is a channel going up the back of the body, down the front of the body, when you create that pathway for the sexual energy to move in, the aroused energy, then you have a pathway to move the arousal in during sex. So when you become aroused during sex, you're able to just move that energy through your orbit instead of ejaculating it out. That's one of the number one skills for ejaculation control. So you create the space in the body for the energy to move in internally. And that's a game changer for men. That's also how you start to have full body orgasms, basically. Working with the microcosmic orbit, giving yourself an internal pathway to move that energy in. Okay, so here's a question. I've heard you say before you do not consume alcohol. Did you find it difficult to retain from ejaculation from sex under the influence of alcohol? So I don't drink alcohol. So it depends. You know, alcohol can make premature ejaculation worse, or it can just like numb your genitals and, you know, maybe help you last longer. But, you know, I don't recommend alcohol in general. So so being able to control your flow of energy, being able to channel that arousal upward instead of out your genitals is a key to ejaculation control and to being able to have full body orgasms. Eating meat, smoking weed. I used to smoke weed, but I don't anymore because it kind of burns up your jing, it burns up your kidney energy, it makes me feel very spacey and depressed afterwards. And so I stopped smoking weed. It's also damaging for your sperm levels, your sperm mobility, basically your sexual vitality. Weed and sexual vitality are not a great mix. As far as my diet, I do eat some meat. I eat some animal products. I used to be, you know, I've tried different diets. I've tried vegan, I've tried keto, and what I find is just balanced diet in general. I eat organic. I eat, you know, as natural as possible. So basically high vibe foods, you know, foods with lots of nutrients and generally low carb, high protein, high fat is what I'm doing. So one more thing I want to share about ejaculation control, and I'll start answering more questions. So one of the biggest game changers I've recently found in arousal control is the fact that excessive PC muscle tension actually makes premature ejaculation worse. And this is unfortunate because, got my phone in front of the camera. Most people are teaching Kegels, you know, and only Kegels as a method for premature ejaculation. But if you're just doing a lot of Kegels, if you're just squeezing your pelvic floor like crazy and not doing anything to counterbalance that, you can actually make premature ejaculation worse because hypertension in the pelvic floor equals, you know, because, okay, so the PC muscle is linked to the sympathetic nervous system. You know, I just talked about how the sympathetic nervous system is, ejaculation is a function of the sympathetic nervous system. So the PC muscle, when you're constantly squeezing it, you're creating a lot of tension there. You're actually activating the sympathetic nervous system, which brings you to ejaculation closer. So when you're, you know, squeezing your PC muscle like crazy during sex, this actually makes you more sensitive, makes your penis more sensitive, and makes you more likely to go over the edge. So what I'm finding is pelvic floor relaxation is key during sex for lasting longer. And when you can keep your pelvic floor, keep your PC muscle completely relaxed during sex, you can last as long as you want. Like it's it's been a game changer for me, basically. And that's the new methods I'm teaching in my 6-week course, is how to keep the PC muscles relaxed during sex, and which involves basically breathing into the pelvic floor and using the breath to keep the pelvic floor relaxed. So that's been immensely helpful in my experience for ejaculation control, basically. So we should do Kegels, but not during sex. So I have a video on my YouTube where I talk exactly about how to do Kegels properly. Basically, you want to do reverse Kegels at the same time. So you do a Kegel, then you do a reverse Kegel. A reverse Kegel is where you're like, let's say you have to urinate, you're pushing it out. That's the same muscle. That's a reverse Kegel. So you want to alternate your Kegels with reverse Kegels, because then you have a strong but relaxed pelvic floor, basically. So yeah, and those are some tips on ejaculation control. Basically, control your breathing, stay relaxed, keep breathing deeply from the belly during sex, and learn to open the microcosmic orbit. I have some videos on my YouTube about opening the microcosmic orbit, channeling energy through it, and that is the primary foundation for being able to channel your aroused sexual energy upward, is having this open microcosmic orbit to channel the energy through. So I'm going to answer questions now, so feel free to send me questions. Let's see. What's a good sex book to read to improve knowledge on the subject? A really good book as far as like these internal practices of circulating internal energy is Taoist Secrets of Love by Montauk Chia and Michael Wynn. That's kind of a classic, but it's difficult to really master this stuff just from working with books, basically. So how is the energy redirected up through breathing? It's partially breath. Use your awareness and the breath to draw the energy upward. It's like your spine's a straw and you're sucking the energy up to the brain. That's one method of drawing the aroused energy upward. Is body size a factor in the benefits? Not necessarily. I mean, if you're really like overweight, you may have trouble with some blockages in energy channels and things like that. So I think physical fitness in general is important, but in general, body size isn't too important. Multiple partners a negative? It depends. The thing is that when you have sex with someone, you're exchanging all this information. You're basically taking a lot of their patterns on. So if you're sleeping with multiple people, and if they're not emotionally clear, if they're not doing anything to like resolve, the issues that they're going through, then you're just going to take these things on yourself. So, a lot of people in polyamorous relationships are just creating more work for themselves because they're processing their own karma and their partner's karma. So it depends where you're at energetically. It depends where your partners are at. That's kind of one of the things with having multiple partners. Have I done Shaolin? Yes, I studied at a Shaolin center for a little while. Did some martial arts there. So yeah, I've done some Shaolin systems. It's very tension based. I prefer more kind of relaxed, energetic practices now. Do I adjust my practices for the winter season? Good question. Yes, I focus on keeping the kidneys charged in the winter. So in Chinese medicine, kidneys are responsible for sexual vitality. They're like the battery of the body. If your kidney energy is weak, then you're not going to have energy levels in general. Your sexual vitality is going to be low. And winter is the time when the kidneys tend to be weaker. So it's important to take care of the kidneys during the winter. So, I try to be a little more stillness, more calmness in the winter. I kind of cut out some work from my life, take more time to be just kind of quiet, be still in the winter, which is very important. Is masturbation bad? It depends on the context. If you're, getting on the computer, looking at porn and, masturbating to ejaculate in a couple minutes, that's discharging your energy, it's depleting you, and that's definitely not beneficial. Whereas if you're using masturbation to cultivate your sexual energy, to draw it through the body and learn to have non-ejaculatory orgasms, you're actually building up energy that way. So that's not inherently a bad thing. So it's all about context here. So just answering questions. Would caffeine keep you in that fight or flight mood? Yes, definitely. Caffeine, like drinking a lot of coffee and things, tends to keep you in that parasympathetic state. Cortisol is secreted into the blood, and I generally recommend avoiding caffeine if you're trying to last longer in bed, things like that. Just in general, you don't want to be overstimulated. I like some green tea here and there, but I can't have like coffee. It's too stimulating and depletes my kidney energy, basically. Why do the Taoists say to ejaculate every 2 out of 10 times you have sex? I think you're saying. Why bother ejaculating? So you'll hear different views on this. Some people say you should go forever without ejaculating. And then, a lot of people say that you should ejaculate every now and then as well. And I say, experiment, listen to your body, see what works for you. One thing is that for men, testosterone levels tend to drop after about 2 to 3 months of retention. So it may be better to kind of reboot the system at this point, so to speak. It actually raises your testosterone and hormone levels in general. So I don't think long-term retention is good for all people. It depends what you want, depends what your goals are, in my opinion. Chinese herbal supplements do I use for my kidneys? There's 2 different supplements I like, 2 different formulas. One is it's called Shou Wu formulation by Dragon Herbs. It has a lot of the good kidney building herbs in it. And then I also take one called Astra Essence, ASTRI as in astragalus, Astra Essence by Health Concerns. So when you take Chinese herbs, you don't want to just take like 1 or 2. You want to find a formula, because then they all kind of work synergistically together and balance the effects out. Does semen retention help with getting rid of mental clutter? It definitely can. When you're ejaculating frequently, you're typically depleted in zinc, and there tends to be high levels of prolactin in the blood, which suppresses testosterone and lends to brain fog. So practicing semen retention definitely increases your clarity and your mental focus ability. Are mushrooms a good kidney boosting supplement? Depends what kind of mushrooms. Reishi mushrooms are great. Chaga mushrooms, cordyceps. These are great supplements to take, definitely. Does semen retention help the immune system? Definitely. So when you ejaculate frequently, there's actually a study that showed when you ejaculate frequently, the androgen receptors actually shut down. They kind of disable. The androgen receptors are basically what bonds to testosterone, to different hormones. And so what happens is, after the body's ejaculated several times, it shuts down these androgen receptors, which basically means that the body stops repairing itself, stops repairing muscles, stops repairing cells, and focuses on creating new semen, basically. So when you're constantly ejaculating, the body places less emphasis on repairing itself and strengthening the immune system, and places more emphasis on creating new sperm. So semen retention and ejaculation regulation definitely supports your immune system. I haven't been sick in a long time. What are good Kegel exercises? I mentioned this a little bit ago. Do Kegels and reverse Kegels. I have a video of this on YouTube. So the kidney supplements, Shou Wu formulation by Dragon Herbs, that's SHOUWU, Shou Wu formulation by Dragon Herbs. That's one of my favorite kidney builders. The other one is called Astra Essence, and the company's called Health Concerns. So you can find those on Amazon. Those are some great kidney builders. First time I felt orgasmic waves going up my spine today. Is this what charging the brain with sexual energy is supposed to be? Yeah, I mean, it'll feel different for everyone. Feeling orgasmic waves up the spine is definitely a good sign. And you'll kind of feel like a pulsation in the brain when the sexual energy gets there. So it may feel slightly different, but yeah, sounds like you got it, Simon. So just answering questions here. Feel free to post any questions you have. Do I know Careza? Yes, Careza was one of the first methods I learned, and I think it's a great method. It's not something I use like exclusively, but I think that is a great method and helping you to train to experience new sensations of sexuality, basically. How many days of recovery after a wet dream? Well, there's many factors to that. For example, if you retained for 3 months and then you had a wet dream, it wouldn't be much of an issue. Whereas if you ejaculated and then 2 days later you had a wet dream, recovery from ejaculation is very different for everyone. It depends on your health, your age, your diet, your exercise level. Like there's many variations, very many factors to how quickly you recover from an ejaculation. So it's different for everyone. Watch my YouTube video on how to recover from ejaculation. I give some good tips on what you can do to quickly recover. How do you climax without ejaculation? Basically, you draw that, so that sexual charge that's building, as you approach ejaculation, instead of letting that completely build up in your genitals and then explode outward, you diffuse it internally. So you work with your microcosmic orbit, you clear this internal pathway and draw the energy upward constantly during sex as you're becoming aroused, so that it never hits that point at which it has to ejaculate outward. And I go into this into great depth in my 6-week course. When practicing controlling your ejaculate, does it matter if you retain most but not all? I think you mean like if you spill like a small amount or something like that. It's not a huge issue. Don't worry too much about it. It will happen here and there. How do I know that I'm not repressing my sex energy but actually transforming it? Often, even after I do all the practices, catharsis and breath work, I feel frustrated and angry. So yeah, frustration and angry is definitely a sign that your energy's stuck. You've transmuted your energy so that if you're not feeling like sexual frustration, if you're not feeling angry, irritable all the time, then you know that you're actually transmuting your energy. Hey, Nikhil. So as far as transmuting energy, the most effective practices I find are the testicle breathing practice. Basically moving the energy through the microcosmic orbit, having sex, and channeling that energy through the body. Breath work can be helpful, but I find qigong and like the specific energy circulation practices to be most helpful for circulating sexual energy. When is the next program? My Multi-Orgasmic Man course is launching again in January 2020. Okay, guys, thanks for joining. I have a couple announcements. I have a retreat coming up in February in Thailand, if you're interested in that. So this is a men's retreat. It's going to be a 1-week intensive in Chiang Mai, Thailand. So if you're interested in that, send me a message. It's very sort of, there's only 10 spaces. So if you want to join this men's retreat in Thailand in February, then send me a message. I'll be sharing more info about that soon. So thanks everyone for joining, and I will see you next time.